Welcome to the webinar today. Thank you for joining us and thank you for joining. Welcome to the 4-Hour Empowerment webinar. Distinguished moderators, speakers, and participants, it's a pleasure to welcome you and thank you for joining this webinar, which is part of the 4-Hour Empowerment Conference titled Renew Your Mind, Restate Your Goal, Rebrand Your Life, Retell Your Story, a perspective on mental health, cultural integration, and career mentorship. We're indeed grateful for the partners and all who have collaborated with us to make this event happen today. Before we start with the discussion, let me first talk a bit about the webinar and what the Netherlands Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights intends to achieve with this webinar. The session, which for today is going to be based on mental health and the impacts of migration for migrant women. This session will therefore focus on discussing the impact of migration and mental health of African migrants by highlighting its main challenges. In this regard, panelists such as health care professionals, psychologists, and therapists will share their views and suggest solutions to address the mental health issue which women face upon moving to the Netherlands. The mental health and well-being of the majority African female migrants remain to be threatened along with economical and social well-being. To address this, the Center for African Justice will introduce a platform like this to provide a space for knowledge sharing and discussion on the tangible steps to overcome the difficulties encountered by young African migrant women in the Netherlands. I hope that through this webinar, African female migrants in the Netherlands will be better informed and equipped with helpful tools and guidance, and more importantly, learn and emulate this information that will be gained here today to help them overcome their mental health challenges and to recover from this challenge. So thank you again and welcome to the webinar. Thank you all our speakers for being here today. We really appreciate your presence today. I would like to introduce the moderator for today by the person of Mr. Michael. So Mr. Michael holds a PhD in clinical psychology and science theory from Utrecht University. He has spent about 20 years working as the director of COVID care in Utrecht, devoting himself to manage projects focused on cultural diversity, child abuse, conflict management, and peer education. And is coordinator as the interest group, Social Emotional Learning of the International School Psychology Association. He has a wide-ranging expertise in providing support to victims of sexual violence and women and girls experiencing traumas and psychological issues, such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD. He has a background working with vulnerable groups in society, such as youths at risk, refugees, and minority groups. Furthermore, he participated in the TELOSI program of the Council of Europe in his capacity as manager and facilitator of module personnel development, prevention of child abuse, discrimination, and violence. So please welcome Mr. Michael. Hello, are you there, Michael? We can't hear you, you're muted.
Okay, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can stop sharing the screen. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's okay. Yeah, isn't it that now Sofia Gu is going to say something to the audience?
No, you can proceed.
Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, so where do I go? So we go to the first presentation, or is it?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. So thank you very much, Mrs. Suleiman, for the welcome and the introductory remarks. It was very insightful indeed. I would like to take this opportunity to give some housekeeping information to everybody. We kindly ask all the participants mute their microphones and that speakers also mute themselves during other presentations. We will open the floor for the panel discussion. And to make sure we are all contributing to the topic, we have a chat box to source your questions, and feel free to drop questions or share your struggles and experiences. You can start sending in your questions by typing them in the chat during the speaker's presentations, and the moderator will collect them so they can be answered at the end of the presentation. Okay, this session, we will start by the panel to provide us an expert perspective on the topic. And our first speaker is Mrs. Natalia Leal, life coach. Ms. Natalia Leal guides and empowers international professionals to successfully navigate personal and professional transitions. She is a certified professional life coach and behavioral coach, specialized in positive psychology, a PhD holder, drawing on 20 years of professional experience across sectors. She has successfully supported clients from different spheres. Natalia provides intuitive and flexible life, career, and executive coaching by applying an eclectic approach, thus helping individuals find clear and meaningful direction. She also has expertise in the area of fair trade and policymaking and has worked with the European institutions in Brussels. So she will be speaking on achieving personal growth and coping with life transitions. We would now like to welcome Mrs. Natalia Leal's participation.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you to the entire team for organizing this event, and for all of those of you who have also taken your time to listen to us and hopefully at the end to discuss this important topic. I do have a presentation to share with you. I will try to talk just about 20 minutes, and then maybe there is a little bit of time for discussion after my presentation, though the big question and answer will be at the end as explained. Okay. So indeed, I'm going to talk about achieving personal growth and coping with transitions. I will not go too much into detail about who I am, but I just like to sometimes introduce myself also in a different way. We tend to present ourselves first and foremost by identifying ourselves with our career, with our profession. But sometimes I just like to say, you know, I'm originally Portuguese, but I've been an expat now living in different countries for more than 16 years. And I'm a real fan of jigsaw puzzles. It's more than a fan, it can go into addiction. I don't know if that exists, but certainly something difficult to handle sometimes. I have expertise in different fields, but I'm mostly also a migrant myself, as I was saying. And that's what also brought me to my current profession of being a life and career coach and trying to help others in similar situations figure out what to do with their life. And the fact is that, as somebody said thousands of years ago, the only constant in life is change. And sometimes it's hard to realize that things, even though when they seem static, they're always moving. But certainly there's no doubt that there is change when we talk about migration, about movements. And some transitions in our life may be small, but moving from one country to another, sometimes even from one city to another, that's a form of migration as well, is definitely a big change. What happens is that this type of transitions, sometimes we are lucky enough to be able to choose them and plan them. Sometimes we can choose them, but they're too quick and we cannot fully plan it. But unfortunately, sometimes they are forced upon us. We don't have the time to plan at all. So there are many different types of migrations and transitions, which means that the starting point for all of us, what made us do it, can be quite different. But I believe that once you arrive in a new country, the challenges are actually fairly similar. Once you're there, you need to face quite a few disruptions to what was your normal life. First and foremost, I would say, because that's how we spend most of our awakened time, we'll obviously see some difference in our career, in whatever we are doing. We are probably changing employers at the minimum. Sometimes we're lucky to just have been transferred. Sometimes we lost our jobs entirely and we need to rethink our entire future. For sure, what was our private support network, our family and friends are now at a different distance, maybe at a call away, but what seems easy through social media and technology can create quite a big emotional distance. And also the wider social network. not just the immediate friends, but your colleagues, the community in which you live in, and the cultural context in which you are immersed. Obviously, there's also big differences, big changes in what you feel, what you perceive you are, how you live your personal life. And I would say that if all of these elements have an impact on our well-being, the last one in particular can really affect it, our sense of ourselves. And that's also what I'm going to focus on during this presentation, not ignoring the relevance of all the other ones here, that I've mentioned here. But well-being has become this sort of posh, popular concept nowadays. But if we talk about mental health, which for me is just almost an equivalent, is intrinsically associated to well-being, then we start seeing that sort of still taboo approaches to it. It's still complicated to have a conversation about it. Even in countries such as the Netherlands, I don't know where you are following us from, but even in a society that is quite open, based on the sense of individual freedom, we don't easily open up about mental health issues. And so it's really important when you're going through this process of moving to a different country that you look at, namely, what can you do from the sense of your personal perspective, me, myself? What can you do to help you recover from this transition, from this disruption, a major disruption in your life? So let me talk a little bit about personal growth and how it can be used as a path to move forward. Whatever brought you to that new place, to that new country, sometimes just a new city, but sometimes a new continent, you can use personal growth as a path to move forward. Personal growth is not easily defined, but I see it more or less as a sort of approach or a series of methods by which you can get to know yourself better, understand who you are, what's at the core of your characteristics, not just the personality, but what are your values, what are your priorities in life, and how can you reach your highest potential? How can you continue to develop and grow as a person as you go throughout life? And so I like to share often, there are different images like this one, but that show that we tend to remain in our comfort zone. It's what feels familiar to us, what feels safe, because we are mostly in control of it. But in order to grow as a person, in order to be able to live different dreams, to set goals and grow in all dimensions of our life, we need to cross different areas. And at some point, hopefully, we will reach a learning zone. We will start to learn from the challenge that we faced. But before that, we also need to cross a fear zone, a state in which we often, but to which we often react in not always constructive ways. The immediate reaction of getting outside of our comfort zone, which means we are uncomfortable, when we get into this fear zone, is to, oh, no, let's go back. It's to kind of retract. And so we need to dare to be a little bit uncomfortable, to allow ourselves the potential to have some level of personal growth. And I'd like to invite you to think about this in different ways. The first thing is by paying attention to how we each and all as a society define success. So one of the elements you need for personal growth is to set your goals, to think about where is it that you want to get to, what's the outcomes you're trying to achieve. Whether it was planned or not, we should give enough time to consider, okay, I'm here now. What am I going to make out of it? What would I like to do with it? Too often, we rely on notions of, I call it success, whatever we say, which is about career, about personal happiness, fulfillment in life, having a family. But we fall into these notions coming from what I will call a predominant approach. We take what our society tells us should be our definition of success, and we basically build on it. And this is very heavily permeated by a societal and cultural belief system that tell us that, for example, or especially for women, there is a specific definition of what is the recipe that we should follow to be successful as women. And traditionally it was already, you need to get married, find a good husband, you need to have children. Hopefully you'll be pretty. At some point nowadays we will think you should consider buying a house, maybe even getting rich. These are the messages we receive from society. And for the last decades, since we became also fortunately more emancipated women, we also have this idea, this recipe also says, but you need to be educated and independent at the same time. You need to study, you need to make your own money. And there's this kind of recipe that tells, if you do all these, if you find a work hard, find a husband, get a family and so on, you will achieve success and eventually that will lead to happiness. I'm quite uncomfortable with this recipe and personally I don't accept it. What happens is too often we fall on these definitions that other people give us, and it's only too late in our lives that we realize, oh wait, but maybe I didn't even want that. People were telling me I should do it, but I never thought whether I wanted it or not. And so when you move to a different country, one of the biggest challenges you have is to think about how you look at yourself and what you intend to be in this new context. And for sure, you will have to learn to navigate both the similarities, hopefully if there are some, especially the differences across your home country or the country where you come from at the previous moment in your life, and your new host country. Whichever these are, it doesn't matter if they are neighboring countries, you will find differences. And we'll need to find a way of navigating through these cultural differences, but even differences in the way we approach what is career, what is professional, what is the role of a woman, what is within the boundaries of what society accepts or recommends. And so finding a way of recognizing the differences, navigating through them, and it doesn't mean necessarily endorsing them, but you need to embrace that they are there and they are now part of your reality. So you're going to have to do something with it. Pretending that they don't exist is not going to lead you anywhere or not in any positive direction. So my first recommendation, I'm just going to give you a couple of kind of tips or suggestions for how you can achieve personal growth in these crucial moments of migration, is to, okay, what if you just redefined what success means to me? What is it that you have in front of you and how can you create your own definition? Ultimately, this should be, you can borrow elements of what success means from what others recommend and suggest, but you need to make it your own. You need to get to a state where you have your personal definition of what it will mean for you to be successful in life. I, for example, quite like some approaches from psychology, namely logotherapy, which mean that ultimately it's about finding purpose and meaning, even in moments of suffering and hurt, that you find that there was a reason, that there was a meaning behind it. And so when you move to a different country, the rules of what is success can change a little bit or dramatically, but you have this opportunity to take that change as a chance to redefine yourself and to set your own new personal goals and rules for what it means to be successful. So one of the suggestions I give you is to really watch at what we call, in our language, we call it your rules. It's how you measure that you are successful. And however you phrase it, think about what you tend to tell yourself. Oh, I am being successful, achieving personal growth. I'm being happy. I'm being fulfilled. When something is happening, we all tell ourselves a certain formula. There's a condition or something that needs to happen for you to feel that you're in that state. What is it that you're telling yourself? So you can write it in a simple way. I will be successful. I will be happy. I will feel fulfilled, whatever, when this is happening. They're there to redefine these are called rules, but sometimes I even say they are ruler. They're what we use to measure what is okay and what is not good enough. So spend some time reflecting if personal growth is something that can help you in these moments of transition. How do you define the rules for growing as a person? I am experiencing personal growth when something happened. Find your definition, spend some time with some pen and paper, and actually write it down. What I suggest is that you try to figure out, okay, who is it that you are or that you're trying to be? No, I am personal experience, personal growth, success, a fulfilling career when something's happening. Now, a couple of recommendations is that avoid using universals or absolutes. Words like always. I'm successful only if I always please my boss, or I will only experience personal growth when I have reached that ultimate level. Only if, so only, always, never, everyone, no one. These are absolute words. And success shouldn't be dependent on perfection. A lot of us are trained that way, but it's not an empowering and constructive way to look at it. So instead, give yourself some freedom, some flexibility, and say, you know what? I'm experiencing personal growth. Every time I share my experience with others, such as you here, and I will get to have a conversation and the feedback. So anytime, every time, or when I talk with anyone. And so you're setting yourself more for success. So don't create rules also that depend on other people allowing something to happen, what we call external validation in a sense. Create rules that depend on you. And I decide when I share something with others. No one can tell me to share or not to share. I can be invited for sure, but I decide ultimately. And if I'm sharing, I can go to anyone on the street and decide to share. Then I'm already successful, independent of whether the other person shared back or not. I took the initiative. I decided to share. And so eventually, watch out for how you define what you need to accomplish to be successful. Because if you're only successful when always this happens all the time with everyone, then actually you're setting yourself for failure. When we can actually retell the story and say, no, I don't want that kind of ruler. I want one when anytime I do this, I'm already being successful. I'm already being experiencing something. I'm already achieving growth. And once you've done that, if you can picture the rules you're living with that are flexible and kind to you, just do it. Be that person. Live in that way. So as long there's a snowball effect that comes also from starting to live that way, and then it just becomes you indeed. So just ask yourself if your rules are also appropriate to who you wish to be, who you wish to become in this new country. You have this opportunity to redefine yourself, to kind of let go of all definitions and to approach this in a very different light. So my first recommendation is begin with the end in mind. What is it that you want to reach? And try to then walk backwards. It's complicated. It's not something that pops out from your head immediately, but it's an effort worth having. A note of caution, and that's why this is so important. It is, I like to quote this sentence from Henry Ford. He said that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Because indeed, our beliefs determine so much of how we experience life. And so we need to watch out if we set ourselves for success or if we set ourselves for failure because we're being too hard, too rigid on ourselves. That's going to predetermine what happens. It's a type of self-fulfilling prophecies that we don't wish for, but we end up creating. So be aware of how you're looking at yourself and at this new world around you to create the space for who you want to become, and then just be it. Another tip I like to share with you very quickly is about practicing what in our language, in our jargon, we call resilience or real-time resilience. And to be very practical, I'm just going to mention 3 strategies. When you are facing complicated situations in this new country, and you are wondering what's happening, possibly going down some negative thought processes, you're starting to judge yourself compared to others, wonder what's going to happen if you miss a train, and then you're going to miss an interview. People are going to think you're not serious, you're not going to have a job, you're not going to pay the rent. We start sometimes creating this snowball effect. So whenever you find yourself in difficult situations, when your approach, your mindset is not in the right state, here are a couple of things you can do. You can use a technique, it's called evidence, and say, wait, that is not true because. So you are looking for the evidence. Oh no, just because I missed the train, it doesn't mean I'm never going to get a job and I won't be able to pay the rent. That is not true, because I can still catch the next train. I can call the interviewer, explain what's happening, ask if I can have an interview a bit later. So go through all the things you could do to put yourself in a more constructive mindset. Another way of looking at this is just reframing. And you can do this by trying to start the sentence about the situation by something like, well, a better way of looking at this is, say, yeah, okay, I missed the train. But a better way of looking at this is, well, it actually now gives me some extra time to prepare my thoughts while I'm waiting for the next one. Try and look for the positive side of things. And finally, a very, very common technique, this is actually called part of the, forgot the expression, 2 I's, intentional planning. It's to plan for what you will do if something that is not so positive happens. And you can think in advance about this. Well, wait, if I miss the train, then I will do this. Or in the situation you've already missed the train and you say, oh, if they don't allow me to have the interview a little bit later, then I will do this. And by asking yourself to think about these scenarios, you don't need to run through all of them, just the most likely ones. You are actually helping yourself to pick good decisions when you're not yet in the most stressful moment of the situation. So ultimately, the overall idea is that we need to be able to embrace these changes, these clashes that will come when you move from one country to another, and use this discomfort as a way to allow us to grow, to see things differently. But another tip I want to leave you with is to never, I don't think I have ever really failed in my life. I didn't have very good grades at physical education, but still that was not a failure. Failure only happens when you don't use an opportunity as a learning, to have a learning lesson. And so every time you need to face something in this new country, learn the language, understand how they work regarding work, so regarding the employment area, when you're trying to figure out things, and sometimes we try for the first time and it doesn't work, you use it as a learning opportunity. And in that sense, when you feel lost, just do what some people say, fail forward. Yes, okay, it didn't go well this time, but now I know better, and next time it's going to go better. And every time you're trying to learn something, because whatever you do, whatever is the situation you're facing, you might think you only have one way forward, but there are always multiple options. Almost a person who has been working in one career for the past 30 years still has multiple other careers she could follow with equal or even higher success levels of fulfillment and happiness. The same thing goes for your life. If you think it's usually very hard to deal, for example, with the loss of family members, or it was just losing our friends, but losing or being apart from them sometimes. In this case, we don't necessarily lose friends, but we're apart. But we can create new friends, we can create new communities, find new circles. So just to kind of summarize my tips, I would just like to invite you to start thinking about what's the end you would like to see happening, and clarify that, work a little bit on that. So once you know who do you want to be now after you've migrated, who do you want to be, and start living, be that person. Watch out for what you're allowing your mind to, for how you are allowing your mind to guide you and to judge you. So define your own rules for success and make sure that they follow those recommendations I had earlier. You can practice the 3 strategies I mentioned, and try to really see the possibilities and just overall adopt the growth mindset when you're going, yes, you need to cross a fear zone, a learning zone, but eventually there's growth. And I can tell you, it can be complicated, it can be a suffering moment to get there, but it's so rewarding when you feel, so now I'm at a new level. You feel it. And my last recommendation is just be kind. We tend to be too harsh, to judge ourselves too hard, in a very hard way. And especially in these moments of transition, when you're looking for personal growth as well, we need to be compassionate with everyone for sure, but first and foremost with yourself. You can't help others if you don't help yourself first. So sometimes we're faced in these transition moments when we migrate with very different contexts, new waves. The sea is very rough, can feel very different, and we can't do much about it. The things around us that we cannot control are too many. But the idea is that maybe we can learn to surf. Maybe just find a way to navigate through these differences, to find your own style of surfing, so that you can find a new base and a new ground, your new definition of purpose and meaning in that new life. And so just invite you to take this opportunity. See it is definitely a challenge, but it is an opportunity to design your new life intentionally. Just give it a little bit of thought about what could you do right now about it. And so thank you everyone for listening, and I hope you gained some new ideas. Back to Michael, I guess, or
Yes.
Any questions and answers? Let me check now the chat. How many minutes do we have?
Yeah, I think, wasn't it that we take those questions at the end of our seminar and that we just go on now? Yeah. So then we have all the questions and remarks. Okay, thank you very much, Natalia, for your very insightful contribution and listening at it and hearing what you were saying. I think one of those or more of those strategies has been used by my wife. Introducing myself, I'm married with a Cuban wife since 1980. So she came in the Netherlands in 98 and she came in January, so it was very cold. And she landed in Schiphol, and so then she said, oh, it's not so bad within Schiphol. And then we got out of the Schiphol and it was like 1 degree. And she said, wow, this is very different from the temperature in Cuba. So I know a lot about in my personal life, like with my wife, how it is to get to the Netherlands, to get to West Europe, and to be in a completely different kind of culture and system. And all the transitions that she has been going through, I've been following it all the time and still following it. And we have a nice son, and yeah, he's a mixture of Cuban and Dutch and everything. And actually, if you look at the Cubans, so they have also like Nigerian, Yoruba backgrounds, they have Mexican, Indian background, Spanish background, German background. So my son is a mixture of a lot of cultures. I think I can start presenting myself. I think you have been doing a great job by presenting me at the beginning of our seminar. So I don't have to present myself again, I think. So I just will start with the PowerPoint presentation. So maybe you can share it for me.
Share the slides.
Yeah, good. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present my own strength model. And this is a model that has been developed in the United States in the Santa Barbara University. And but I first want to go in some of those traumatic experiences. So the building up of my presentation is talk about traumatic experiences in general, about migration and traumatic experiences, and then go forward to the my own strength model. And then I have some one slide, some questions, and then I give you the opportunity to share some thoughts about the model. So if we look at the traumatic experiences, actually each of us goes to those traumatic experiences in our life. So for everybody, there's no exception to it, small and more severe during childhood, adolescence, adult or older age. And some of those experiences are mild, and some can be very, very serious, as we know. It was nice that Natalia was already talking about resilience and mental health. So if we can solve our traumatic problems by ourselves, it's mainly because of resilience. And actually, how did they get to resilience? It was like if we have two children, for example, in a similar situation, a very difficult situation, one of them is just managing to deal with the situation, coming out of it, and the other one doesn't. And then the question was, how is it possible that one person is managing to get out of this situation and the other one doesn't be successful, can't do this? So then this word of resilience came up, and it's something like a strength within the person itself to deal and to cope with difficult situations. What we see, what is very important, is to have help, to have support, because just by ourselves, we can't manage. We need others to help us. And I think everybody sharing this webinar, who is in this webinar, knows that at a certain point of moment, you really need somebody else to help you out. And it is like, how do you say, it is, most of them, it is important that people that you really like, that you get to know, that are, you know, safe for you. One of the research it has been doing, there was in Deventer, or one of those cities in the east of the Netherlands, there was an explosion of a factory, and there was a lot of damage, a lot of people traumatized. And what they were doing was, first of all, that people that knew each other were helping out, and then came in the professionals. And 80% of the people could solve their own problems. And this is a resilience. And only 20% needed extra help. And that is the other thing. Sometimes we need professional help. And then it's really important that you can find it as well. And it is not always easy to find appropriate professional help. Okay, the next slide, please. Let me see, yeah. So some of the examples of traumatic experience, I've just listed them. It is not like really all the traumatic experience, but just mentioning. So bullying, aggression, intimidation, or violence, discrimination, child abuse, domestic violence, divorce of parents, sexual harassment, sexual abuse, severe accident or illness, or loss of a dear person. So all these kind of situations are situations that might happen in your life. Then the context of migration. So I think Natalia were already addressing this as well, but what happens is you're really separated from your families. And it depends, some you can bring your family to your country, but for example, from my wife from Cuba, it's really difficult to get out of the country. It's not easy. It's a lot of paperwork, and it is a very controlled country. So it's very difficult to get your family members to come over to the Netherlands. And I think when you're just there by yourselves and there's no family, there are no friends, it's quite a difficult situation. Of course, there's a culture shock for most of you. The Netherlands is quite a different country if you come from, you know, from Asia, Africa, or Latin America. And speaking Dutch is not easy. And if you don't speak English, and for some of this is the situation, it's quite difficult to communicate and to understand what people are talking about. Then, of course, we have the level of acceptance in the Netherlands, the experience discrimination, and it differs. Some people just don't have a problem with it. Others, they really are affected in an easy way. Just to give you an example, I know from a girl from Curacao, and it's about 25 years ago. She was sitting in the bus and somebody said something, "Hey, you're a black girl, what you're sitting there, let me sit there." And she really wanted to go home. She just didn't want to be in the Netherlands anymore. She says, "I hate the Netherlands. I feel really discriminated." And another person like my wife, she says, "Okay, I have a Dutch passport. He has the Dutch passport, so I have the same rights as you have." So it's just a different way of dealing with this situation. And of course, what is experience is important as well, the traumatic experience that you have in your own native country. And this is very different from each of us. I know some of them that have had really different situations coming to the Netherlands, and others that they are quite happy and, you know, everything was going quite smoothly. So what is the challenge? The challenge is how to integrate into society, how to find your way, how to get friends, how do you do the education, work, an apartment, living, a house, language, your income, and of course getting to know the Dutch way of life in the system, because this is really complicated to learn this and to get to know this. So most of those, more for women than for men and boys, is that if you have say traumatic experiences, it's going inside, like it's going to be internalizing problems like anxiety, depressiveness. So we see, you know, with boys, not always, it's not always like this, but boys, you see more, you know, that they go start fighting, quarreling, getting to problems. So we say externalizing behavior. We see that a little bit more with boys, and with girls, we see a little bit more like internalizing problems. So what are those internalizing problems? And then we go to the next slide. It is what I've seen as a list. I just selected some of them. It's not like complete, but like feeling sad and lonely and afraid, unwanted, or not being loved. To withdraw yourselves, this is an important thing, and not wanting to socialize. You just have been seeing the other slide. It's so important to get the new friends, to build up a network. But if you're like internalizing, you just, you know, withdraw yourself, and you are just isolating yourself from situations. Just a minute. My son is calling me, so something is there. Let's go on. So being irritable or nervous. Okay, excuse me. Let's go on. Becoming irritable or nervous, and especially in stress or emotional situations. You don't want to talk or communicate with anyone. So this is again, you know, internalizing, isolating yourself from other people. Then concentration and focus on important tasks. And if you were looking at the presentation of Natalia, and she said, if you want to have a growing mindset, it's so important that you focus on certain goals you want to set. But if you are like having those depressive and anxiety problems, it becomes much more difficult to do this. It affects your self-esteem and your feeling of being worthwhile. You feel less, and it can affect sleeping, and that you are worrying and being awake at night. So we go to the next slide. We see also like it affects your way of living, like eating, drinking, the way you look at yourself, the use of drugs and alcohol and medicine, things like that. And even in some cases, it can be like self-mutilation, suicidal thoughts, attempts, or ideation, so that you really get into troubles. What you need to do in these situations is, if you want to cope and if you want to solve these traumatic experiences, focus on your own strengths and resources. Okay. Can you give me just 1 second? I just have to figure out something. Daniel, ik zit in een presentatie, man. Ja, stop, ik moet door. Excuse me, this is part of, you know, having children. Just attend your son is in a question. So, okay, so the thing is to focus on your own strengths, resources, and I will start to talk about my own strength model. So like I told you, it was developed in the United States in the Santa Barbara University. There's a survey to it that has been validated in the United States in large groups. It also has been introduced in Japan, China, England, in Latin America, and the Netherlands. I'm introducing the model, so it's quite a model that is really a sound model. To look at the model, it has 4 domains. And the first one is to believe in yourself. The second one is believe in others. The third one is emotional competence. And the fourth one is engaged living. We have 12 strengths in the model, and I show you the model in the next slide. And each domain has three strengths. It is based on positive psychology, like engaged living is based, this is the part of positive psychology. It is based on emotional intelligence and multiple intelligence, and the resilience literature. And the focus is on the strengths, the assets, the social and psychological skills within the model. So if you look at the model, yeah, So you can see it. So you see the line, the yellow part is believe in yourself. The other side, the emotional competence, dread one, engaged living, and then believe in others. And if you look at these strengths and believe in self, you see self-efficacy, you see persistence, self-awareness. If you go to believe in others, you say institutional support, family coherence, peer support. If you go to emotional competence, we see emotional regulation, empathy, and self-control. And engaged living is gratitude, zest, and optimism. And so what you can see, if the idea about those strengths is that each of us has strengths in one or the other way. And the important thing of the model is that we don't look at the weaknesses, but we look at the strength that we have. So it's a shift of focus from deficit to strength. And it is also to be aware of the strengths and the social skills and the assets that you have. It is also like focusing on the development of your strengths and social skills. And to progress and focus on one of the main or 3 or 4 strengths and enhancing success, well-being, and flourishing. So if we look at the model again, yeah. So if we look at the model, so in the middle, you see being successful for women and men. And when we were talking about those internalizing problems, what we see in most cases is that people are separating and isolating themselves from others. And then the belief in others is a very important part. So if we want to have interventions, when you feel depressed, when you feel anxious, to believe in the other and to relate to other persons or institutions is very important. So if you have the opportunity with your family, it's of course communicating with them. So if they're not here in the Netherlands, then it's communicating by Messenger or by WhatsApp or whatever, communicating when to get the support. To have friends of your own age, peer support. So this group we're working now, this is peer support. So we will be helping each other, we're working together, we're listening to each other, we're learning together. So this is a peer support system that we have now. And institutional support is of course institutions in society that might be of help to you. Just stay at the model, please. Yeah, thank you. So if you look at the belief in self, and I think this was the part that Natalia was really focusing on in her presentation. You know, how can you set your own goals? So some of those things are like self-efficacy. How good are you at setting your own goals and to go for it, which means that you need also some kind of persistency in it. And if you want to know who you are and what you are, there's a kind of self-awareness in it. So those strengths, are all part of what you are. If you look at the emotional competence, so for example, if you feel very depressed or very anxious at a certain point of moment, how long do you stay with this emotion? Is it weeks or months, or is it just 1 day or 2 hours? And in this comes like the emotion regulation. So how flexible are you? How capable are you to change your emotions? And I think Natalia was also talking about how you do this. And I think our next presentation will be talking about these kind of things as well. So how can you change, your emotions, and how can you be more flexible in it? Empathy is an important part of it well, if we want to help each other. So when I'm helping one of my friends or my peers at one certain moment because I feel that she or he is at need, and I help this person, like empathy comes back. When I'm empathetic, the other person feels empathy for me as well, in most cases. So at the moment that I need help, the other person will be there for me as well. So this is how we work together. So that's how we connect as peers. And a kind of self-control is needed as well. So if you feel very emotional or you get in panic, count till 10. I'm really looking back at this very great presentation of Natalia, because she was explaining these kind of things as well. So you have to be in control in a certain way. So you have to, you have to use your intelligence sometimes to how to manage your emotions. And looking at engaged living, like gratitude, zest, and optimism. In the survey, one of the questions is, when I get up in the morning, I think it will be a nice day. And you can work on that. Because I can get up in the morning and I just can set my mind onto it to say, what kind of day will this be for me today? And I can say, I think it will be a good day. I will manage. So I start the morning with a thought that is positive, that is optimistic. And another part, like gratitude, there are so many things to be grateful, and we forget it a lot of times. We just forget to say thank you to somebody else. There are many times that somebody is doing something nice for us without noticing it. We just take it for granted. But it is nice if you say something just like, oh, thank you. Oh, great that you have me doing this for me. Oh, this is nice. And I proposed, one day I was in a school in a team with 25 teachers, and they were all worried about internalizing problems of mainly Dutch girls in grammar school. And I said, what would happen within your team if each of you would say 3 times a day, thank you to one of the colleagues during a period of 3 weeks? What will happen in your team? What will do this? And some of them said, let's start today. Let's start tomorrow. We will do this. This is great. This is nice. You know, there are small things you can do just to work on your own strength. What I was saying before in this slide that you have me seeing is this is 12 strengths and 4 domains. And we know all of us that it's very difficult to work at so many topics. So if you say, okay, I want to work in it, the best thing is just to focus on one domain, or to focus on 2, 3, maybe 4 strengths to work on that. And set your own goals and your own idea in it. And I think, yeah, just looking at what Natalia was saying, it can be integrated. What you have me tell, I'm curious, Natalia, afterwards to hear from you what you think about the model, because I think there are a lot of, connections between what you have been presenting and the model that I'm presenting here. So I think you can focus on 1 or 2 of those strengths. And important is, if you feel those internalizing problems, believing in the other is a very important thing. This model has been worked out, developed for high schools. So it has been really, fixed in high school. So if you see institutional support, then you say school support. But many of us also believe, have a religious system. So there are believers. For myself, I'm a Catholic, somebody is a Muslim, somebody is Hindustan or whatever, other kind of religion. So believe in something that is there, like Allah or God, whatever, is also part of your belief system. It's also believing in something else. And we know also like that religion can be of great help in our lives and to solve problems. So just to give you the idea that this is a model developed for the education, but it doesn't mean that this is it. So we can work in it. We can expand the model and add more strength to it, or to be creative with the model, what we can do with it. So let's go to the next slide. And that is, I already have been talking about it. So the elements, and the exercise would be now, for if you have some time, left some time, maybe we have some 10 minutes or something like that. So looking at this model and looking what I've been explaining to you, and looking at your own mild or more severe traumatic experiences, which strengths help you most? Just reflect on it. Just think about, oh, this or that or whatever. So you need the model to look at it. And how did these strengths help you? What happens? And the last one is, are there also other sources that have helped you? So I would like, if it is possible, to do this some 10 minutes so that people can just, give some input. So we just open up, like people say, I want to say something, because I'm really, really curious to see what people will say. So is this possible, Aziza, to do this? Can we do this for 10 minutes? Just get some input.
Yes, sure. And everyone can put it in the chat, or do you want it to be?
Yeah, they're just gonna ask. So just if somebody asks those short questions, not like long story, but just some question or some remark, so we get some interaction, if it is possible, would be nice, I think.
Okay. The questions on the slide, everyone can answer in the chat, so we can get a response.
Can we do that for, say, 10 minutes? Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So anyone can say something.
Can I just suggest you put the questions in the chat and then show the model?
Yeah,
somebody can copy and paste the questions into the chat and.
Yeah, but people can also speak up. That is also nice. It's all good, a good exercise also to speak just, in a webinar.
No, but I mean, so we have the questions in mind when we're looking at the model.
Oh, okay. I think I saw one coming up. I wrote in a post-it that I have right next to my bed, it's going to be a great day. And then I added a hidden part saying somehow for when I am a bit lower. So somebody else. Empathy and gratitude. So maybe the person that is saying empathy and gratitude can explain it to us and just tell something about it. Is that possible? And Natalia says self-awareness. Maybe you can say something about it, Natalia, about self-awareness and what way did it help you?
I think in my personal experience, it was just about, up until recently, just being on automatic pilot. You just went with the flow, you just, whatever was happening, you allow yourself to go with it, not being aware of what your needs were, what your preferences were. And so I really had to practice. I didn't have to, I had maybe the opportunity to practice this strength in the last 4 to 5 years, which is something that I had not done before in my life. And this has given me a very different interpretation of who I am, what I can do, and what makes me happy. And I think I noticed that too many times we are in this automatic pilot mode, and we're totally unaware of what's happening, even when we are in pain and in suffering or experiencing trauma, but we don't even tell us, oh, something's happening to me. In the moment we are able of naming it, it's only then that we can do something about it. As long as we try to avoid and pretend nothing's happening, it's very difficult.
I've got another one. I got one from Jago. Do I say it good? Great value for real friendship and relationship. Jago, can you say something about it? Is it possible? So maybe we can open up the microphone, Jago, and Jago is saying something about in what way value, friendship, and relationship was important.
Yeah, it was very important for me because I got the support and the strength to.
Jago, is it possible that we can see you as well, or
no,
we only see your name, so maybe you can show yourself?
No.
Is that possible?
No.
No. Okay, just tell me what you want to say.
I value friendship because. For example, if my friends are in a difficult situation, when I support them, I feel that there is something mutual and that we get support. It's a support system. And also, when the opposite happens, when I'm in a desperate situation, when my friends support me, also I feel that I get strength from that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very nice what you're saying, because you're telling about, like friendships or peer relationship and peer support, reciprocal, like you're helping the other person is helping you.
Yeah.
And you're talking about empathy as well, because you said, when I do this, I feel that I'm connected. I feel that I'm helping out. So this is really like the feeling of the empathy, and that is, so important to have this feeling.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there somebody else who wants to share something with us about the strength model? No one? So we go on.
I can, if I can say, I would like to say something about it.
Yeah, please.
I was thinking, like, one of my strengths, I feel that it also like is a weakness at the same time, and that's persistence. I can be very persistent and not give up. And once when I was a migrant in Ghana, I got quite ill and I didn't know, but because of my persistence, I kept like work, and made my whole situation way worse. The same persistence got me out of it by, working on my health and But so, yeah, when you ask the question, like what strength like helped you, I was like, yeah, persistence, but it's also what kind of got me in a bad place in the first place. So I just wanted to name that.
Yes, thank you. I think it is very important. what you're saying, that sometimes the strength, if you use it too much or you use it in a situation that you shouldn't do that, it works against you. And actually you're saying this, so you were actually, working so hard that you were, getting worse. But at a certain point of moment, you realized that it was happening. So at a certain point of moment, you say, okay, I'm not going to get better like this. I have to do something different. So there came a kind of awareness about your persistency, that it was too much. And so you changed the situation, I think. And what you were saying, just, to go on to get here to the Netherlands, and this, that you needed this persistence and inner strength. And I think, like, if we go on talking, I think a kind of self-esteem will be there as well as a strength, that you think I'm a person, I'm worthwhile, I'm worth to get there to the Netherlands. I can go there. There's a kind of feeling, I think, is also like important to do this. So yes, thank you very much for your contribution. Mm-hmm. And actually your name, Rosa, is the same one as my wife. Her name is Rosa as well. So somebody else, or shall we move on? What do you think? I think go to the next presentation, and then at the end, we can have more conversation, is it? So I just want to share the last PowerPoint slide of my PowerPoint presentation. Is that possible? The last one, just go on. Yeah, so this is, if you look at it, so this is if you want to communicate with me, this is my email address, my telephone number. And if you see, this is also a family training center. So actually this is from our family. It is built in 1432. And I'm often there, and we organize training and things like that. So if you feel like going there one day, just we can do that. And at the other slide, I just ask also, like, if there are persons that want to become a trainer in the own strength model, we can set up a training. And it's also like for the Association of African Justice, it is also possible, if you would like, to have training or seminars, activities, over there. And it's just 2 hours from Utrecht, so it's easy to get there. So I'm just telling you, it's there and it's available, and you're welcome. So let's go on to the next speaker. Is that it? Okay. So I would really like to welcome now Mrs. Vina Joseph, who's going to be our next speaker. And I will introduce her. So our third speaker of this session is Miss Vina Joseph. She's the founder of Forerunners Consulting and Coaching, which aims to ignite transformation in women and help to explore paths of self-discovery and discover their purpose. Moreover, she works as a program manager at the Sunshine Au Pair, where she's involved with recruitment, matching au pairs with families, crisis support, and coaching students in the cultural exchange program in the Netherlands. She has worked in different capacities in women empowerment and youth development, and has about 10 years experience in the field of banking, education, and people development in India and Europe. In 2021 and 2022, Vina was involved with the Bridge to Hope, supporting human trafficking victims in a vocational program. Moreover, she has co-founded She Sustains, a women's platform which brings together Dutch locals, institutions, foreign nationals, expats, as well as international students, thus acting as a bridge for exchanging cultures, experiences, and ideas for collaborative ventures and social projects. She will provide a contribution on the topic of explore path of self-discovery and fulfill your potential. Okay, I really would like to welcome Ms. Vina Joseph. The word is to you.
Thank you, Michael. Can all of you hear me clearly? Yes? I'm very pleased to be here with you all today, and thank you for a very insightful presentation on the strengths model, Michael, and thank you, Natalia, for pointing out resilience as a very important tool and a few tips that we can do in our everyday lives. Of course, my presentation is a workshop, I want to remind you, so there is going to be some participative portions to it. So be ready to participate If you haven't participated, this is your flow. We are going to participate in different ways with the chat. I have a small game that I would conduct. So if you have your phone with you, that would be very useful to participate in this game. Great, Natalia is showing her phone. Yes, great. So today I'm going to talk to you on this topic of explore parts of self-discovery and fulfill your potential. And how do we do that? And I can't start without talking about my own migration story. So I'm going to share my screen and we go on from there. All right. The first thought I want to leave with you is, as you see the slide with its twisted turns and many bubbles here and there, I want to tell you that your migration story is your own. It's unique, it's powerful, and you need to own it, right? And I just want to give you a hint of my migration story. Maybe you see some lines that you say, okay, I went through that. Okay, I identify with that. Or maybe some things are new for you. So my life started in India, where I was born, if you haven't figured that yet. As a student, pursued my master's in business administration and went on to be a banker. I got recruited as a campus student. That's the greatest thing that anyone can expect when you're studying to be recruited, and ended up in banking for a few years there in banking, training in different customer service, positions. But there was a certain unsettling unhappiness in me as a young adult. I felt that there was something missing from my life, an unsettled feeling. I don't know if some of you have experienced that, a restlessness per se. And I went on to take a moment to see if I can shift my career. And I went on to be a lecturer for business management students for a period of 6 months. But life happens. At the same time, I got pregnant with my first child. And I had to stop lecturing because of health reasons and responsibilities as a young mom in a different city, away from family. So you don't have family support. You're in a nuclear family in a different city. I hope some of you recognize that. And I became a full-time mom, and I enjoyed being a mom for 3 years. And then suddenly an opportunity came up for my husband to come to the Netherlands for his work. And I became this person, the trailing partner, the trailing spouse, as you can call. It's a big change for anyone. I had absolutely no idea where Netherlands was. Where is it in the map? Is it in Europe? Where is it? That was my first expression to it. And we started this journey of change from there on, and a lot of change. The weather is different. You land here, I come from a warm country, and you think, what shoes should I wear? Oh my God, the jackets that I brought is not helping me. The wind is so bad, right? So much of change, physical, emotional change. But there came a point for me at the end of the first year when my daughter started school. That is when everything hit me. So often when you are migrating, it's exciting. There's something new you're looking forward to. But often when you come here and you process all of this, it takes you some time. I'm not saying 1 year is a mark, but for everyone, it takes a certain time to sit down and think, where am I? Is this life? What am I doing here? Am I? That question hit me a lot. Am I so-and-so's wife? Attending these functions from my husband's office? Am I so-and-so's mom? Attending programs and volunteering in school? Who am I? That question popped up for me, and I wanted that identity to be defined for myself. And that's when I started looking for work. And of course, I had experience in the field of finance. So I got a finance manager job. And I started because I thought, let me start at some point because I need some social life of my own, colleagues of my own, a work life of my own. Maybe that is a starting point. So I just started with no expectations per se. And I worked for about almost 3 years. And then again, I found that same unsettling feeling come back, saying, what am I doing? you know, I was not happy doing finance. I was good at it, but I was not happy deep down. There was something missing again. So that is when I started my discovery phase. So I'm going to talk to you of how I went through the discovery later on in the presentation, but I explored new paths. I just took time to learn Dutch, to learn swimming, because I did not have my diploma in swimming, to learn driving. I used to drive in India, but driving here suddenly was so different for me. The direction is different, and there's bikes, trams, and all sorts of things coming on the road. How do you navigate this? So I started focusing on certain skills I want to develop and take a time to discover myself. And I went on to taking up a course, a diploma on being a counselor and a coach. It's an international diploma program for 1 year. And at the same time, I suddenly had this opportunity coming up from a place where I volunteered. So remember, volunteering is very important. It is very fruitful. It's never a waste. I got offered a job from the organization I was volunteering to be the program director. It was a church, to manage the Sunday school where there were 100 children coming in every Sunday. And from being this person here with not much happening in my life, I suddenly was doing so many things, working 24 hours, learning Dutch, doing a part-time diploma. That was the busiest season of my life in the Netherlands. And then life happens again. We went into a period of uncertainty where my husband's project in the Netherlands was almost coming to an end. Maybe we would go to the US for a new assignment, or maybe we would go back to India. There was lots of confusion, uncertainty. And finally, we never went. We are still here because, yes, life happened. We had the US visa. This is how migration works, isn't it? You can have your visas and permits. It doesn't mean anything. Some things can shift at the last moment. So when that happened to me, something hit me in saying, I want to do something on my own. And I started my own business, Forerunners Consulting and Coaching. And I gained a lot of clarity in what I wanted to do, in my purpose. So I wanted to help women transform, help women discover themselves and their purpose. And I saw there is a challenge in doing that. So that's where I was in 2018. And further on, I became a certified ICF coach and working with the culture exchange program with the IND as a program manager. So my purpose is birthing and evolving, and having done 350 hours of individual coaching, I predominantly work with young adults. So that is a bit of my journey. Now, what I want you to remember is there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of discovery that I went through myself. It does not mean that my story has to be your story, or my experience has to be your experience. Your experience is unique and it is valid. Moving on from my story, now let's do a small moment of interaction, because I want to hear from you. What is your journey in migration? So if you can pull up this website on your phone, or if you're on your laptop, you can pull up a browser. It's slido.com. I'm going to share with you the specific slide, and there is a number that you have to enter to get into the poll. It's basically a poll. We have a few questions and you can answer them. Slido.com, and this is the number. So when you open up slido.com, you would normally see this screen, and then you can enter the number here, joining as a participant. Yeah, I hope you got in. I'm going to start the poll at this moment. Were you successful in getting in? The number is, I can put down the number here. It's 3892458. Yeah, I see the participants coming in. 5 participants. Okay, there you go. The reasons are popping up. family relocation, marriage, love, all very pleasant reasons so far. Study, self-discovery, living by myself, education, adventure, a lot of people for study. All right. One more participant typing and we will move to the next question. Education, escape from war. Yes, migration can be for various reasons. All right, I see a lot of them for study and various other reasons. And someone said self-discovery, so I hope this helps you today. Moving on. Words that describe the excitement and challenges of moving to a new country. Just pick some words that describes your excitement in moving to a new country, and some words that describe the challenges. Uncertainty, language barrier, yes, of course. Being overwhelmed, new beginning, culture differences, my own place, culture, new friends, that's an exciting factor. Language barrier, belly ache, okay, thrilled. Nervousness, so physical differences, yeah, emotional changes. Some of you may have faced some anxiety, for example, maybe the belly ache is connected to that. Explore an absence of family. Yes. What else? New experience. Okay. So I see two mainly positive ones, new friends and new beginnings, but also one challenge of uncertainty, not knowing what this will bring. Nervousness. Loneliness. Yes. That is often something that we have to experience. There's one more participant contributing, and I'm going to move on to our final question of interaction. Stress. Yeah. It came late, but it's very real, the stress. Uncertainty and new friends again. Okay, moving on to our final question. According to you, what is the most essential support needed for women in migration? According to you, what is the most essential support needed for women in migration? Later on, I'm going to share these words with the team, so they have the word cloud, so you can keep it in memory. Coaching, a good new friend, access to support systems, basic human needs, reliable support, community, access to job opportunities. I also want you to reflect on how your needs are different depending on your circumstance and situation. Mentorship, very powerful. Empowerment, a life coach. Safety. Enough income for basic needs. Mentorship. A lot of people have said mentorship. Religious. Affinity groups. It's very real. We have to pay our bills. We have to have access for basic necessities. That comes at the beginning of our hierarchy of needs. Money, joining clubs, spiritual support. Thank you for sharing. I hope you enjoyed participating, and I certainly enjoyed seeing these answers, and it just gives us a perspective. It gives us a perspective of how migration plays a role in our lives and how it plays a different role, and our needs are different. Having said that, I want to focus on one particular challenge that I faced myself personally, and Michael also shared the different challenges that one can face in migration. That is the identity crisis. So you are in this new country. For example, I'm from India, and I'm here in the Netherlands, the land of giants, just measuring about 155 centimeters, looking so different. And for the first few days, I was like, what do I wear? You feel like people are actually looking at you. You have these kind of, I never had social anxiety back home, but I did experience that a little when I came here. So definitely there is this conflict in yourself, who am I? And I think that as a great starting point to embrace your unique self. It can be a great opportunity to discover who you are. And some of you are young adults, you are still in the process of discovering who you are. You are still developing that. And this is a great opportunity. And acknowledge the struggles by telling yourself that I'm going to be okay. That's going to get you somewhere. But you should acknowledge the emotions that you have. I miss my family. I miss the cultural customs and traditions. I miss the I'm lonely. I miss my school friends and college friends. I miss my childhood friends. These are all real struggles that need acknowledging. How can I initiate social life here? If you are from a community oriented culture, this just happens to you. You don't have to make initiations. But in the Netherlands, where it is a more individualistic culture, you have to actually make the initiation. Otherwise you end up knowing nobody and having no friends. You can just end up being home having no friends. It's very real. And sometimes maybe you think it's only happening to you. No, this is the cultural setting that you are in, where some initiation for forming a network is required. And shifting identity and perspectives. You had some identity already when you were in your country, and you had some perspectives on what you thought about your country. You see all the facilities in Europe. Your perspectives are shifting. You're thinking about what is bad back home, what is good here, what is good back home, what is bad here. All those things are shifting as well. Sometimes you feel misunderstood when people ask you questions about India, because suddenly I became the representative of India, and people used to have conversations with me, strangers, about India, the political issues, the human rights issues. And suddenly you feel like, why are they asking us all this? But it's really curiosity. That's the way people connect with you, right? Because they know you are from a certain place. Sometimes you may feel misunderstood. Conflicting values. You may come from a different set of values, and you face a different set of values here which are conflicting. So as you're going through all of this, the only thing I want to mention to you is, don't lose you in the process of integration. Yes, you have to integrate. Integration is a very healthy process where you are adapting the Dutch culture, but also being very strong in your own identity of who you are and where you come from. And mainly, this cultural identity is not which ethnic group you belong to. That's not it. You are a unique person with a set of skills and strengths that are so unique. Even your fingerprint is so unique, right? You have unique fingerprint. You have to first understand that uniqueness that you have, no matter where you come from and what your background is. And no matter what your reason for migration was, the underlying human issues are the same. I just want to point out to you, a lot of people said loneliness. A lot of people said, I would like new friends. Those kind of underlying issues for us are the same, no matter which country you came from, or what kind of privileged background you came from, or what economic standing you came from. And that is where, as a community, we can help each other. Moving on, I want to put this question forth to you, because this is a women's conference. I want to ask you, according to you, what are the problems women face in society? In general, what are the challenges or problems that women face in society? You can just unmute and go, or you can type in the tag. Inequality, sexism, multiple roles, much more than man. Yes, a lot of things to do. Again, our strength being becoming bordering towards an unhealthy, we are multitaskers. You have this picture of a Indian goddess with many hands. It's often put up in yeah, but that is bordering towards an unhealthy pandemic. A lot of women are going through burnout. Yes. What else? Mental loads. Yes. Overthinking. A lot of processing of things in our mind. What other things do you think women specifically face in the society? Anyone else? Judgments. Yes, judgments, of course. Domestic burdens. Absolutely. That is one of the huge challenges of doing the balancing act, right? What do I do, or how do I balance my life? Thank you for sharing. So what I want to say here is, yes, we have double standards. Be sexy, but don't be sexy. Slut shaming. Being a woman is equal to motherhood. Absolutely. It doesn't mean, someone shared with me, she's single and she never became a mother, and she shared with me how people tell her that she has not attained her fullness of being a woman. That's often some people say those things. Discrimination, that's a very huge thing. Discrimination, inequality. Now, I just want to say, we just are aware the world is different from a woman's perspective. And often we are still struggling to make people understand that these things exist. Sometimes we hear things like, this is just in your head. This is just, you feel this way. We hear things like this. I think we have come a long way from getting voting rights and having the right to education, but we have some more way to go in this. And I just want to acknowledge these difficulties that you are facing and the struggles that you are going through. You are heard. I just want to say that to you. But let all this not become a barrier to our growth. Let all this not become a barrier for us seeking our purpose and living our potential, right? These things exist. Some things we are able to control. Some things we are not able to control. How can we shift and progress from these issues that we face in the society? Let's do another game. Are you good at maths? Yeah, it's just some simple multiplication and subtraction. Just go ahead with this simple math game. Multiply your age by 365. If you have a calculator, you can pop it up. I'm not going to check answers, okay? There's no right, wrong answer, but just go ahead and follow the multiply your age by 365. And then subtract that number from 30,000. Subtract number from 30,000. Divide that number by 365. And subtract again by another 15 to account for uncertain life events. Now you have a number. Now you had a negative number. So you had a negative number. So you shouldn't subtract. If you know maths well, you have to add 15 to it. So now you have a number. I'm not going to ask you to share that number. That's your personal number. Now you have this clear number of the many years you have to wake up, and maybe this inspires you to live more courageously from now on. The whole idea of this exercise is to tell you that your most precious currency is time. We have a starting date, we have a birth date, and we have an end date. The only thing is we don't know when. Your time here is limited. Now, what are you going to do with this time? That is the direction you have to think. I know you are very young and you're not thinking about dying, but keeping in mind the kind of challenges that globally we have faced with a pandemic, I think you should have a fair understanding that our time here is never forever. You have a certain amount of time here, and what are you going to do with that? Now, I told you I will talk to you about exploring a path of self-discovery and fulfilling your potential. Now, you should have this question in your mind. What is my potential and how will I live to fulfill that potential? Michael shared the strength model, which talks about self-awareness. That is the very beginning of all strength. To know yourself is to grow yourself. If you don't know who you are, if you do not know your strengths, your gifts, your areas of growth, your talent, your uniqueness, then you cannot add on to anything else. When you introduce yourself, I am so and so from this country, I'm educated in this field. This is what we say, right? But you're more than that as a person. You have some unique talents that are beyond these degrees and positions that the world can offer you. So you need
Jigsaw
to
puzzles.
jigsaw puzzles, great one, yes. So you need to know who you are, what your strength is, and you need to specifically spend time doing that. I know time is a challenge for you as you're working, studying, trying to make ends meet. I know it is a challenge for you. But I would say if you want to have well-being in your migration story, and if you want to grow to a certain goals that you set, Natalia gave us a lot of pointers of how you can set goals and redefine success. You need to spend time reflecting to know who you are and scan your mindsets and motives. The picture here talks about anybody knows what mindset it is? The growth mindset. And what is the opposite? Anyone? Closed mindset. Yeah. So sometimes we have certain opinions or beliefs about certain things, and it's kind of fixed in our mind because we have not lived in another country and we don't have the exposure. You have that exposure right now. As a migrant, you have the ability to meet people from all over the world. One thing about Netherlands is you can meet people from anywhere in the globe here. It's so multi-diverse, isn't it? That's a great strength of Netherlands. So it gives you the opportunity to build on a growth mindset. Scan your mindset. How is your mindset? Is it leading you towards growth or is it keeping you where you are? It's a very important reflection, and take ownership of yourself. Somebody spoke about, what can you control and what you cannot control. That's exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of the problems that we have pointed out today, societal problems, we can control by being contributors in a positive way. So if I want to combat sexism or combat inequality, I should make sure that I rise up to the occasion and not let that push me down, but I should raise and show in my work, in whatever I do, that I'm better than those stereotypes that exist in the society. We are part of the system. We are part of the problem as well as women. So think about the things that you can control. Don't let the things that you cannot control push you down. Don't get into that cycle of thinking about all the struggles we face, and it can be like a cycle, right? It's you start in one place with a negative thought and then it just spirals and spirals, and it's a downward spiral, and that's not a good place to start, and it does bring you mental health struggles. So think about the things that you can control and control that and work on that, and lose the entitlement and ego. I will say this, you might have been a certain person in a certain country, but you are here. Maybe people don't know who you are, and that's okay. Maybe you don't know certain things. That is completely fine. Ask for feedback. check in what skills you need, what development areas you have. Don't get frustrated when someone points to you that maybe you need some growth in some area. Lose that ego. I had one international student telling me that they were at the level of a judge in their country. And then here they are as a students, and they have to start all over again. And she found it very, very difficult for herself. I know there is real struggle because people recognize you back home. They know you for who you are, but nobody knows you here. But that's fine. You can start from somewhere. Discipline yourself. Self-management skills are important. How do you manage your time? How much time do you spend on social media? How much time do you drain about comparing your life with others? All these things are drainers. They are not helping you in your life. If you want to reach your goals, you need to add in some discipline to your life. And failure and rejection is something you cannot avoid. I'm saying this again. Failure and rejection is something that you cannot avoid. Like Natalia rightly pointed out, the only failure is not recognizing the learning in it. It is a great moment for you to learn from your failures. Rejection sometimes is redirection. Maybe it's not for you. It's okay. It's okay if someone felt that that is not a position you need to be in. That is okay. It's not the end of the world, right? So these are some tips I want to leave with you in order for you to explore your potential and how to live yourself. And when I'm saying all this, maybe you're thinking in your mind, oh, I have so many things I have to do now. I want you to have this mindset of incremental progress. You're not going to arrive at some point tomorrow. We all want that overnight princess story, don't we? We want to just sleep and wake up. In India, we have a lot of Bollywood movies, and we would often have one song in which the hero's life would change from a pauper to the millionaire. They show that in movies, but unfortunately, that's not real life. There's incremental progress, there's incremental steps. And Natalia spoke about moving in the wrong ladder, right? Maybe the ladder is on the wrong wall. Sometimes you move towards certain steps and then you have to totally shift your ladder to another wall. But what you have to look at is, it didn't feel like much at that time, but you have made massive improvement. If you don't recognize the steps that you have made, if you don't encourage yourself, who will? You are your first motivator. Motivation starts with yourself. 10 people can tell you have done well, but if you don't feel that you have done well, intrinsic motivation is so important. So focus on the next few steps instead of the final destination. What can I do at this moment? In this time, what can I focus on? And we all want to go on self-discovery because it sounds very much fun, adventurous, but there is a mindset that you need for self-discovery. And I want to bring to you an analogy or a metaphor of a map and a compass. How many of you here have used a map or compass to navigate yourself? You have, right? On a trekking trip or GPS if you're driving, for example. Now, how does it work when you're following a map? For example, your GPS, you're blindly following the next right, left you have to take, and it takes you to your destination. You don't think so much. You're just following a certain obedient instruction. But if you want to go on a self-discovery, I want to challenge you to use the compass, where the whole path is not certainly given to you, only a direction is given. And along the way, you're going to explore things. Along the way, you're going to learn new things about the geography of where you're going. We are in an age where, there is a lot of reward for certainty and confidence. It's tempting to look at the map. So-and-so did it. So-and-so's sister did it. So-and-so's uncle did it. So I want to do it. And we come from some cultures which follow that formula-oriented, goal system. The shortest, fastest, and easiest way to get there, where you want to go. That's what we want to all follow. The problem with map is it can only take you where others have already been. They can't reveal the best course for you. Only a compass can do that for you. What is the best course for you? With this unique self that you have, with these unique talents you have, how can you make a difference? We all have to explore that. And in the underlying uh, path of self-discovery, a sense of life purpose comes in. And a sense of purpose gives you a lot of well-being. It promotes physical, mental, spiritual health, right? You know why you're waking up and what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you have got to the destination, but I know today I woke up and I'm going to do these things and I feel good about it. It doesn't mean that it's the end or the destination, but you're doing things towards that. Purpose is very, very fundamental. I want to encourage you to follow unbeaten paths, and that is going to help you cultivate empowerment. We are all wanting empowerment. If you want empowerment, you have to be ready to follow that unbeaten path. If not, then self-discovery is not for you. If you want the traditional path of following someone else and following how they got where they got, that's okay. It's not wrong. But if you want to go on the path of self-discovery, I'm telling you, it's challenging and you need to have a certain mindset towards that. But that will take you to your niche. That will take you to who you are and what you can do very, very well and help you live that out. Okay. There is a mental process for self-discovery. We have been talking about a lot of things that you can do, like reflecting, knowing yourself, self-awareness, identifying your strengths. These are all mental processes, right? And this alignment in what you want to do in your mind is first required for you to take steps in the real world, making action points. I want to just go through with you these simple steps, and I have made them up and down because there are ups and downs in this process. Where are you at the moment? What is your current state? Be very mindful of that current state. It's okay wherever you are, however bad the situation is, whatever place you see yourself at, it's okay. And intentionally begin your journey. Think about the challenges, the realities. I don't have money to do this course. That's a reality that faces you. That's a challenge. I need this amount of money to do this course that I have to achieve. I need to work this part-time job to get to my next place, right? That is a reality and a challenge that you're facing. Embrace them with shifts in your mindset. When you're doing that part-time job at this moment, don't do it with a sense of bitterness. Do it with a sense of happiness and pride that you are going in that path. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm building that brick towards my next step. You have a choice to do that. Face your fears, rejection, or discouragement. You know, I spoke about learning to drive. It took me a lot to sit behind the wheel and take the instructions of an instructor here and face my fear of having the tram and the bike come from every side. I had to embrace that fear and having the hope that that skill is going to give me support in the next step in my life. So when I got that skill, I could take up a job which is a bit far away. I can go to the course I want to go without depending on someone or waiting for the public transportation system, right? Or maybe it's riding the bicycle for some of you. You don't come from a culture where you ride bicycle. Maybe it's learning to ride a bicycle. It can be as simple as that. But face that fear and build knowledge and skills to counter that fear. What skills can I learn? And then it's a habit building process. Now, when you have identified that there are a certain skills that you need in the path that you're going, now you have to build a habit. If you're not going to work towards this, that habit is not forming. You know, I have a quote here I want to read. If your habits don't line up with your dream, then you need to either change your habits or change your dream. You know, you can't do the same things over and over and again and expect different results. The people call that insanity, actually. Okay, if you want your goal to be achieved, you want to get to some place, you have to see how your everyday reflects that. I have to read 1 hour of Dutch every day if I want to achieve a certain level in Dutch. If I'm not doing that, I'm not going to complain that Dutch is a difficult language, because I'm not putting in the effort that is required, right? And sustain that change. It's very difficult. Building a habit and sustaining it is not easy. But if you want to move in the path of progress, in the path of self-discovery, you got to pick certain small goals for a short period in time. I always look at my life per quarter. I don't even look at my life per year. In this quarter, what can I achieve? Where do I want to go with my work, with my study, with my personal life, with my relationship? And you can have very intentional goals for that. And what kind of habits can I create for this quarter? And can I see I'm sustaining it? Right? So that's a very start small and take small steps towards incremental progress. I've listed down some questions here for you to reflect. I'm going to put those reflection questions on the chat. And I want you to take some time out after this seminar to go and, take out some time, buy a journal for yourself and write down these questions for yourself. A self-sabotage voice is a voice telling you often why this is not going to work out. We all have that voice, don't we? That negative self-talk. So I want you to take some time to sit down and make a small reflective exercise after the seminar to help you, take those little steps towards growth. And in all of this, don't forget self-care and well-being. Rosa very rightly shared here that her strength of, what was your strength that you shared? Come again, I didn't hear you. Persistence, right? How that when she did that too much, when she worked too hard, that gave an opposite when it went to the unhealthy level. So even as you're working towards your goals, please remember self-care and well-being. You need time to spend with your friends. You need to take a break. You need to have some physical exercise. You need to make sure you have time to cook healthy meals for yourself, not eating those frozen meals, right? You need to check your health. Women have a problem with self-care. I'm saying this having experienced it myself. You don't go to your health checkups well. Is your body healthy? To look at, is my everything going well in this body? Because if you don't have health, you cannot achieve anything that you want to achieve. That is the base for everything. So do take time for self-care. If you do not have a self-care routine, try to make a self-care routine, whatever that might be. 1 hour of Zumba for someone, rather 1 hour of walking in the woods for someone, and we should all be able to take that time out. Oh, that's a nice tip that Natalia has put up here. Name your inner voice, but use somewhat a ridiculous name for it. That's a very good tip there to identify. Okay. We are our own cheerleaders. I'm just looking at comments. Okay. All right. So far, are you with me? Do you have any thoughts that you want to share at this moment? I'm almost coming towards the end of my presentation. Do you have any thoughts that you want to share at this time?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the fact that you mentioned to take breaks, because that was going to be the part of the question I was going to ask. Because at every stage in life, sometimes you get overwhelmed, and if you don't take a break, you can collapse, I guess. So
Absolutely.
I like the fact that you mentioned that despite, just try not to take too many breaks. Like, how do I say it? Don't take a break for a long time, right? Take breaks in between and then continue.
Get back to work.
Yeah.
The balance in those things are so important. We learned that our strength could become, if it's imbalanced, can become a problem. Most of the times our gifts and natural abilities can also cause us problem if we don't have balance. If you help people too much and if you don't know boundaries, you can be drained of helping people.
Yes.
right? So there is always that boundary setting that is required where you have to take care of yourself and then go back, yeah, finish the break and go back to work. Though all that is the discipline that we need to build in. But I want to say a lot of young people feel very stressed, especially in their undergrad program or their master's program. There's a lot of anxiety to succeed, and we face mental health challenges stemming from that. So self-care and well-being should be a part of any form of curriculum or any part of growth that you have. Otherwise, we are handling things in another way. You can be extremely successful, but have no well-being, and that's going to hit you at one point or the other. All right. I want to leave you with this quote. Transformation is a process. And as life happens, there are tons of ups and downs. It is a journey of discovery. There are moments of mountaintops and moments in deep valleys of despair. You know, I take life as a journey of discovery. It's not only me having this discovery of finding what I want to do in life that gives me happiness, or is it aligned with my purpose? Your whole life is a journey of discovery. And if you take it in that stride, when mountaintops you're able to enjoy, when you have those deep valley moments, you need the resilience to come back up. This is how life is. And one story for you to keep in mind. This is a story. I've of course changed the name and details of this person for privacy reasons. I worked with this person. She's a human, survivor of human trafficking brought to the Netherlands. It's happening right here. It's not happening in another third world country. There are a lot of victims who are trafficked to the Netherlands. I want you to be aware of that. Most of the time we are unaware because we are in Central Europe. Trafficking does happen here. And she was brought in here with the promise of a job. And of course, she was used for, sexual trade. And she was in a situation of trauma and a slave for 17 years. She was kept in situations where she was tied down and ill-treated, beaten up, all sorts of very difficult things. And after that, she was rescued and she started her life in a shelter. Now, can a person like this have a sense of purpose? Is there any hope for a person who has gone through an experience like this? What is your thought? Silence. It is an impossible situation, right? What can happen to this person? The person has lost their young years. They're already 51 years old. What can happen? Can she also experience a sense of purpose and well-being in life? The answer is yes, it's possible. She discovered her love for cooking and serving people. So she started cooking in the shelter for about 60 people every day, and she became so good at it. And she started to share that, and she really experienced a sense of purpose from that. So now what she does is she goes to non-profit organizations, invite her for events, and she buys the ingredients and she cooks for the event, and it brings her a lot of joy in doing that. Now she's not paid for this. Sometimes it's voluntary. Sometimes she gets some kind of a support from this, but this gives her a sense of purpose. She's serving. So what is it to have a purpose in life? Is living purposefully means choosing how you will use your gifts and talents to create more meaning for yourself and for others. Living only for yourself, building riches for yourself, paying your bills, having the expensive luxury things is not going to bring meaning to you. How am I going to contribute in this society? For me, it was very important. I came to the Netherlands. I'm here for 10 years, that I contribute to the society here, right? I can't be in the expert circle which parties a lot. I have to contribute to the local society. How am I going to contribute to the others? You yourself as migrant women can also do that. Often you think that they have to help you, but I'm telling you, you can help others too in your capacity. So do discover living a very purposeful life. And I hope this presentation helped you or gave you some pointers in the place that you are at this moment. So this is details to my website. I offer individual sessions, coaching sessions, but also group coaching sessions. I would be very happy to talk to you if you want to share with me something personal that you picked up from this. I would like to hear from you. These are my details. I'm sure Center for African Justice and Peace can also share my details with you. Azizat, is it possible that I share about the retreat? Is that okay?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay. So we have, through She Sustains, we have a retreat that is coming up September 30th for the whole weekend, September 30th, 1st of October and 2nd of October. Let me see if I can share my screen for that. And this is a retreat we have in Tilburg. It's in a place called Zonnewende. It's a beautiful estate, and it is it's done for non-profit. So students have a very special price of 70 euros actually for the whole weekend. And so these are the details. It's a personal well-being weekend. We have a few speakers. Retreat, reflect, and recharge. That is the theme this time, and we have a few speakers that are coming up for this event. And you have a place to stay. You're given a single room, and you're also all the meals are taken care of. We have students who are learning to be hotel, specialists who will cater for this event. It's a very beautiful location. So if this is something of interest to you, do reach out to me. I can show you where you can enroll. I actually have a video. So this is the location, if you can see. So this is just a glimpse of how this place looks like. It's an old estate, very beautiful accommodation. It has a lot of nature in the surroundings, and it is open for international students and women. It's a women's conference. So this is from the earlier years. This was a group picture that was taken. All right. Thank you for listening. And back to you, Michael. Yes, the event is in English. Yes, the event is in English.
Veena, thank you very much. It is a wonderful contribution that you make, and it's a really narrative about your own personal development, and intertwining it with all kind of insights, ideas, and tips and theory. So I think it is very, very nice to hear it, and it is a unique narrative about yourself and about how you have been growing and things like that. So for now, I think we have had the contributions, and we now would like to open the floor for the interactive questions and answers. So we're going to read the questions addressed by the participants in the chat box. So if you have more questions, we already have seen some questions and we already have been answering to it. So if you have any kind of questions, just put them in the chat box and we will look at it and we will answer them.
Maybe I could start by asking the question that I have. Okay, I have a question for Natalia. You mentioned in your presentation that we should define our success, right? Do you think with time that changes, like the definition of what success should be changes? You're muted. Okay.
No, I was on purpose, but definitely. The definition of success changes naturally how we evolve throughout different phases of our life. But also as you migrate, and sometimes we migrate multiple times as well, the definition will change. And actually, I would only be worried when somebody has a fixed definition. And that means they have what Vina was showing, that closed mindset, that this is the only way I can see the world. I cannot adjust to new perspectives, new information that will make me change what I want, what I value, and what I need. And so definitely time is a factor, and it's okay to change your definition provided you do it consciously. It's not something that happens to you, it's something that you choose for yourself.
So maybe I can add something to it. So if you look at the my own strength model, actually it is working at your own strength is bringing to a successful situation. So there are assets that you have, and if you work on it and you use them and you develop them, it makes it possible to be successful. And the other part of it is also the feeling of flourishing or well-being. So the interesting thing is, like when Vina was telling about her career in India and about banking, she said, I was successful in doing this, but I didn't feel happy.
Yeah.
So the other part of it is, so, and if you look at many people in society, many wealthy people, powerful people, and sometimes you can look behind them, and then comes this story that this person wasn't happy at all. And everybody was saying, oh, this is a very successful person, and I suppose this person will be happy and feeling well-being, but it is not like this. So I think if we talk about what is to be successful for ourselves, it's also like the feeling of happiness, well-being, feeling well. And I think what you were addressing as well, Vina, was like looking at your taking care of yourself, spiritually, physically, those parts as well. And I think if we look at this and we define or we think about what is being successful, that the emotion to it and the health that I'm feeling, that all those kind of elements are a very important part of being successful. And getting to be successful is looking at those, you know, like, for example, in this model, like the strengths and how you can use it. So if you say, I want to be successful, yeah, okay, the question is, how do you do this? And then it is like going for those kind of things that you make you grow, or so you have been putting forward some examples as well. And the my own strength model has all certain things you can use on it.
I mean, I use a different model, but one of the things I agree definitely with you is that you should use your top, they call it the signature strengths, as often as you can in the different areas of your life, because that will spread happiness. But another thing that just occurred to me while you were talking is something called, it's the Ikigai model. It's originally a Japanese concept, but it really talks about the importance of being aware not only of what we are good at, like Vina, who was good at financing, like me, who was good, I was good in some previous jobs, and the difference between that and what we enjoy, what we love doing. But the model also brings in how we can contribute to the world, what the world will value as our gift back to it, in a sense. And ultimately, an important part for most of us is what we will get paid for. And sometimes it doesn't mean necessarily money, but we need a return that allows us to survive, not to worry about our basic needs. So for those who are curious, just Google Ikigai and you'll find more about it. Yep. It's just a simple notion, but for me, for example, for the first 40 years of my life, I didn't quite realize there was a difference between what I was good at and what I loved. And it was a shock for me to realize I'm good at this, but I don't like it.
But it's also evolution for me. You love something, but it can also be difficult. You know, I love helping people, but when you are in a crisis situation, it's not so easy to help someone. So you have to be understanding that it doesn't mean because you love something, it's going to be a cakewalk, or it's going to be like, a lot of people tell me, I want to go to work where I don't feel like I'm going for work. You know, it's a very unrealistic expectation. So yeah, you may love it, but there it can be
Still need to
challenging.
work at it.
Yes.
Yeah, something you were saying is, Gina, like I'm working also a lot with youth workers in more difficult neighborhoods like The Hague and the Bosch and Eindhoven.
Mhm.
What happened is they're working more or less by themselves.
Yeah.
And so we have made a team. It's the School of Life project.
Mm.
And so what sometimes happens when you're in a crisis situation, you get pulled into it. And then realizing that you need support of colleagues, of other persons, is important. And also realizing that, so you also have this feeling in this kind of crisis situations, like, oh, I have to manage, I have to do this. And if I don't do this, when I fail, the crisis will be really there. So it's really up to me to deal with this crisis situation. And then realizing that, yeah, that you need some other person, and it is not necessary that you know everything.
Yeah.
So I'm doing crisis training in schools, and I say to the managers, the director, you need a team to do this.
Yeah. And have
5-6
support.
persons, and you have to work together.
Mm.
And it's not necessary that you as a director is the first person to initiate something, because maybe you have an off day, maybe you didn't sleep well, and maybe somebody else is, really, everything is okay with this person. Okay, I will initiate.
Yeah.
So these kind of things, like being vulnerable also in situations, towards each other, is important.
Absolutely. Actually, I think the most powerful situation sometimes is at the moment telling them that you don't have an answer too, but you're in with the person. I'm here with you. I don't have all the answers. That vulnerability is so human, so important. So yeah, sometimes it's frustrating. I see Rosa has a question for me.
Yeah, there's a question for you, Vina.
On Black excellence. What is your question on Black excellence, Rosa? Can you hear Rosa? I'm not able to hear her.
We can't hear you, Rosa. Maybe you
can't-
should type in your question. I think it's
Yeah.
your mic.
For some reason, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
But I see you're connected to audio actually.
Yeah, now you're muted, Rosa. Now you can talk.
No, we can't. Type down the question. I think I know what you're asking about, but if you have a specific question towards Black excellence. I think she can't hear us as well.
Maybe I can just make a comment based on a comment I received privately.
She has said so. It's mostly that I'd be interested in your view on Black excellence. Okay, I think I get it. I think, when we come from countries, third world countries, where poverty is the biggest challenge, where economic difficulties are the biggest challenge, we often have this value that you work hard and become economically sufficient. That becomes the goal of our lives. And I say this from coming from a country the same, India as well. You make it, you study engineering, or you study the professions that will get you that economic excellence, that will get you out of poverty, and that becomes a mission for us. And I don't think that's wrong, because in that situation, in the hierarchy of needs, that is the most important thing. And you want to excel in what you do. The problem with that is, which I'm already seeing in India, is the people who did that and who did not follow their own purpose or passion or what they liked, and they just followed a certain route. At some point, they realize that they are not happy. They are not satisfied. That deep satisfaction and happiness is missing. And then you have to retrace yourself. And I also want to comment here saying trauma is generational. I'm sure Michael can say that as a psychologist. There is generational trauma that we carry. coming from a position of being under the rule of another country, colonization, we do carry some burdens of that with us without our knowledge. It's unconscious sometimes. And you carry that along with you. And it's a burden that we need to shed. Because at this moment, we are not colonized. We are in a free country. So we need to shed that sometimes. And I would say that, yes, you have it in your blood because it's been drilled into you to be excellent in everything. But I would say you may be that forerunner in your generation who's going to do it differently and follow another unbeaten path. If you are a migrant who's living in Netherlands or another country, you're already doing things differently than your previous generation. And maybe you're following a different path. If I look at my previous generations, they were all teachers. My mom, my grandfather, my uncle is a professor in the US. So yeah, I have an unbeaten path. What is this? Sometimes they're confused. What is being a coach? What kind of career choice is that? It's so difficult to explain. Or people, my husband is in IT, so very common profession for an Indian is being an IT manager in IT. Oh, Indians are great with that, but I'm not in that profession, right? It's a different path. So sometimes you are the one who changed the narrative in your generation, and you often feel that pressure because you have this feeling, do I go back and do that, or do I do it differently? You would have the tension, but trust me, do it differently. It will be different for your children. My daughter already knows I don't want her to be a engineer, this or that. I want her to explore who she is and do that, right? And yes, money is important in life, but that's not all. I don't know if that gives you some insight.
So can I say something to it as well? Like, I think what we were talking about, so it's so important to feel happiness and well-being and feeling to be yourself. And what we have been talking about, both of you, like Vina and Natalia, is also like, you have to figure out what is your way to develop yourself in the context of the Netherlands. And not living to the expectation of other people. So not like, oh, I went to this rich country, the Netherlands, and now I have to be, and then there comes some image that those that are in your homeland are projecting to you. So that you're not going to be the person that they want you to be, but you're going to be your own person. And that can be difficult because there can be expectations like sending money. So for 22 years, my wife is sending money to Cuba, and all the time, these kind of things like, oh, we need money and things like that. And you have to be successful. So this discussion is always there, and this situation always there. But it is so important, to look at this. And if you look now to the developments of women and girls in the Netherlands in general, just the results that came forward last week, that there is an enormous increasement of mainly girls feeling depressed and anxious because they have to be successful, or they think they have to be successful because they have internalized it. And the thing is that boys they don't care so much to be successful like the women, the students. There's something with boys that they just say, oh, okay, if I have a 6 or a 7, that's okay. And the girls say, no, I have to be an 8 or a 9. So they put a lot of pressure on themselves. So they do it on themselves. And of course, there's peer pressure, there's family pressure, there's society pressure. So there's a lot of pressure. But at the end of it, it is you who's internalizing it, yes or no. So and I think the importance that we've been talking about, all of us, is really check out your own systems. Self-care was mentioned, looking at your own well-being. And maybe also talking with your friends about it. You just say, okay, talking about well-being, talking about happiness, talking about what it is. And I think the training that you're showing, Vina, like well-being and how you do it, these kind of things are very important. And actually, I didn't know the word Black excellence. So okay, it's nice, but so I think this is important.
Yeah, I think
I just meant to say maybe no, to the people at home. Just say, okay, I can go, like this. And the gold is not falling out of the sky in the Netherlands. There's a lot of money, but I have to work for it. And there is poverty in the Netherlands. There are a lot of families in the Netherlands, also people that live for generations in the Netherlands, poverty. This is the main issue on the moment in the parliament. Yeah. And to share it, how it is.
But also the part of discrimination, it's also a fact. Being a country
course.
that is very, I would say definitely not just above average, but among the best in the world. There's a national coordinator for racism and discrimination working right now on a governmental program. Maybe it was already presented, I don't know. But it's an issue that is not just existing between worldwide for different reasons, but obviously a gender issue, but also between migrants and the background of certain migrants even versus others. Versus others. So, but there's a question about volunteering.
Yeah.
For Vine, and
yes.
if you've read it, I'd let you.
Yes, I have read it.
To hear, but then I have something to say as well.
Yeah, sure. It's not easy for African migrants to volunteer for free, especially considering that they are always low on cash. I think it's a very realistic problem. Some of you are students, maybe you're given that 1-year visa where you can find a job. Some of you find yourselves in situations like that. How much volunteering is decent amount of volunteering? How much is okay to do for free? There was an article that one of our access trainers wrote on this, actually, how much volunteering is healthy. I would say in the midst of less opportunities, volunteering does give you that stepping stone for experience, that you are part of a team, that you are doing some work and contributing. It can be really good for your well-being. It can be really good also to make connections and form a network. But I understand that, for example, if you bring in the aspect of internships, there are paid internships and unpaid internships. Now, I'm very much for paid internships because you are taking in a student for 40 hours a week. I know not all organizations are paying, but I do think that there should be some kind of a regulation on this, because these foreign students have very less, and often their parents are sending them money to have living expenses doing the internship because it's going to help their career. It's a huge burden on a family in general, right? So I think there is a certain fair paid volunteering that you can do. If you're doing an internship, look for paid internships so you get at least some support. Volunteer in places which values your contribution, at least by giving you some travel expense or some expense. And be bold to ask for it, because many organizations in the Netherlands, they have something called a volunteer contract. It is by law that they can give you up to, if I'm right, 1,200 per year. I hope I'm right. There is something called a volunteer contract. Some organizations are able to do that legally. So know your rights while volunteering as well.
Yes, you're right. Like Vina, there is this rule that you can get voluntary money, like 1,200 a year. So it's each month it's just divided by 12.
Yeah.
It is without paying taxes. So they can pay it to you and you don't have to pay taxes on it. So it's just really compensation money for, like things like traveling expenses and other things that you have to do. Yeah. And I agree. It is really important that you know this and that you ask if they can pay it to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
just maybe to add.
Yes.
I used to live in Brussels, and I don't know for how many years now there are people really just complaining that they go from one paid internship to another unpaid internship, because it has become, specifically in that city, for different reasons, but in others as well. So it can become a very negative environment where the unpaid internship is an excuse never to hire you. But the internship is a unique opportunity. So do take the opportunity to do at least one. And just to share a little bit more about my personal story, I arrived at the role of chief executive of an international, though non-governmental organization within, let me see, about less than 2.5 years of starting a volunteering position. So it was working as a volunteer within an organization that eventually, 2.5 years later, I was a chief executive of a different organization, but there is definitely a different connection, a direct connection between both. A story for another time, but it happens.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I also shared the same. It did get me my job in the Netherlands with the volunteering because they had the opportunity to see my strengths. So yes, it does add to your career. But you need to know how much is good, that you need to know that balance.
Yes. There's some remark, I think from Rosa. It says the reality is that those boys are more prone to get high positions despite them having low grades. So maybe we can give some comments, some reaction on this, some answers.
Yeah.
That was my comment about discrimination.
Huh?
It's inherent in society. The gender discrimination is not Dutch. It's worldwide. We're mostly most of the countries around the world are patriarchal societies, and it comes with a higher value given to men than women. But the good news is that it's getting better. The bad news is that we're still far from equality. But okay.
There's a nice model. I just look at the research of it. He developed in the 80s about a 4-factor or 5-factor model of cultures. So he has been working with IBM and he has been investigating different cultures. And he came up that the Netherlands is quite a feminine culture.
Yes, it's very
so not very patriarchic.
Yeah.
So this is of course is quite interesting. And of course,
no, but feminine there is not about patriarchy.
But I mean, it is important, also like to look at different cultures, and also within the Netherlands, like if you go to the south or you go to the north, you feel, also you have differences in subcultures, and it is good to know, all those kind of differences, because if you think something negative, and it is not so negative as you think it is, you get self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
So it's really important to check out how is the situation.
I have a small something I want to add on, because see, again, equality is about respecting the human behind, whether it's a man or a woman, right? And somehow we feel a bit, what can I say, neglected, or we have had to struggle more as a woman than a man has it easy. But on the other side, men, especially colored men, have the burden of being the breadwinner, being the provider, often not showing their emotions. Those are burdens that men still have to. There are so many men who cannot emote. They cannot be vulnerable or share their emotions or burdens. These are the struggles that men have too. They have different struggles too. So maybe yes, in a holistic way, it looks like the man has the upper hand because systems are always helping him. But I do see we are already experiencing it, that we see more people having issues. How are they? Are they able to be really emoting? They have other issues too. And I think what we have to learn is, I don't believe in rabbit feminism. I think we have to learn to work with each other. We are two equal, valuable species, but we are different. A man cannot have a woman, have a child, not yet. Sorry, we have a womb, right? It's
right.
Maybe it can be constructed, but still, right? It is a reality that we are different physically. Our anatomy is different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And we need to embrace that.
So
it's the difference between.
Yeah, sorry.
It's the difference between the sexes. That some of us are women, some are men, some are now in transition, let's call it like that. But the gender roles come with a series of expectations about how we're supposed to behave. And the expectation that if I was born with certain physiological attributes, that I should behave in a feminine way. And that if you have different attributes, you should behave in a masculine way.
Yeah.
Whereas these are, to a great extent, purely constructed definitions of how we should behave. Why can't I have masculine traits? And why can't a man be proud of his feminine attributes? And so it's about shaking the box again and just find your own definition. In that sense, I mean, I think the transgender community is actually pushing us to think in a different way. It's like, I'm not a man, I'm not a woman, or I was a man, but now I'm a woman. and just kind of share that label of how we're supposed to act and behave just because of some biological things. Those are generally unchangeable. You can do operations and surgeries, but for most of us, it's complicated. Okay. But you can still shake the label and say, so I'm a woman, but I'm as tough as a man, whatever.
So maybe, Natalia,
the other way around.
We have to get to the end of our webinar. Maybe something to say to this. There is a book and essay, Women Come from Venus and Men Come from Mars. And the discussion within the Dutch Society of Sexologists, I've been a member of it for 4 years. And they say there are more differences between men and between women than, so under men, there are much more differences, and under, in the group of women, there are much more differences than between men and women. So sometimes I think that women and men are really different, but there's a big difference within men and a really big difference within women. And what we do, if we want to find a partner and from the other sex, we try to find a person that fits to us and that we have a nice and good life to it. So it's very complicated to talk about gender issues and things like that. And I think the LGBT community, diversity community is just shaking up everything now. So in the youth population, there's a lot of discussion. But okay, let's get to the end of it, because I think we have to go to the end. Isn't it, Azizat and Maria Laura, that we have to finish off the webinar?
Yes, I will be the one providing
I say some finishing words. I would really like to thank everybody, the panel and the participants and the enlightening session. Thank you very much to participate in this interactive discussion. And we now conclude the session of the 4 webinar. And we will proceed to the closing remarks by Maria and Ada Maria as well. Project Assistance of the Women Empowerment Team at the Center of African Justice, Peace and Human Rights. So the word is now to you, Ada Maria.
Yes, it's Maria Laura. I will be the one giving the closing remark indeed.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Thank you very much, all the speakers. So it is indeed a great pleasure to close this webinar. And on behalf of the board members of the Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights, I want to express my gratitude and appreciation to all the speakers and for sharing the very insightful messages and for providing also very interesting ways of reflecting on the impact of migration on mental health. And also my sincere thanks goes to the Women Empowerment team of the Center that made possible the realization of this webinar, and to the other teams of the Center for their collaboration and support. And I would also like to thank all the participants from all over the world who joined our webinar, and including those who join through our social media platforms. And just before leaving this session, I also invite everyone to join our future webinars, which will deal with cultural integration and career mentorship. And please check our website and social media platforms for more information. As for now, the exact date of this webinar is not yet determined. And once again, many thanks to everyone who took part to this very engaging, interactive, and informative discussion. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you very much for organizing Center of African Justice, Peace and Human Rights. I've really enjoyed participating. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for this webinar and the participants and my colleague presenters. Thank you very much, and maybe we see each other in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Take
Thank
care.
Bye.
I really enjoyed the conversation. It was really
Thank you.
interesting.
Thank you, Aziza. Thank you for all, all your support as well in organizing and having the communication. Thank you so much.